Chapter 1: The Cradle of Imagination, Early Life and the Seeds of Genius. Salvador Dalí was born on May 11, 1904, in the picturesque yet quiet town of Figueres, Catalonia. Arrived into a world already steeped in tradition. But young Dalí, with his unconventional mind, would soon shake the very foundations of the ordinary. Raised in a household marked by both the nurturing care of his mother and the stern discipline of his father, Dalí was a child of contrasts, one whose early years would unknowingly prepare him to break every rule of conventionality in the pursuit of artistic brilliance. Even as a boy, Dalí exhibited an extraordinary gift for art. His hands, guided by an unyielding sense of precision, sketched everything that his young eyes beheld with uncanny detail. But what set him apart wasn't just his technical prowess. It was his extraordinary ability to envision a world that defied the ordinary laws of nature, a world where reality and fantasy blurred, where his mind could run free. By the age of 6, Dalí was already creating his first paintings, humble beginnings that foreshadowed a lifetime of innovation. His first landscape, painted with the brushstrokes of an artist far beyond his years, was entitled Landscape Near Figueras, 1910. Though it appears relatively simple in composition, this painting holds the essence of Dalí's future work, a dreamlike quality that subtly hinted at the fantastical landscapes and paradoxical realities that would define his career.
When I was very young, I believed that the world was an illusion. My earliest works were just attempts to capture these illusions.
But it wasn't just the peaceful landscapes that formed Dalí's early life. His world, colored by the dualities of his parents' personalities, was also fraught with inner turmoil. Beneath the calm of his art lay a deep psychological conflict, rooted in a tragedy that would haunt him for the rest of his life: the death of his older brother, also named Salvador, who had died just 9 months before Dalí's birth. This loss, though shrouded in the mystique of a figure he never knew, would become the cornerstone of his personal and artistic development. This deep, unresolved grief began to manifest itself in Dalí's work as a pervasive sense of duality. His identity, always in flux, perpetually in conversation with the figure of his deceased brother. Throughout his life, Dalí would often be referred to as the second Salvador, a ghostly echo of a life that was never truly his to live. This spectral presence would reverberate through his later surrealist works, often represented by themes of substitution, replacement, and an overwhelming sense of emptiness. As Dalí's artistic journey began, so too did his obsession with the human psyche, the recesses of the mind and the mysteries of dreams and desire. His early works were not simply an exploration of the physical world. They were an attempt to paint the shadows that lurked within him. It was in this quest for understanding the mysteries of the subconscious that Dalí's surrealist vision began to take root. As Dalí's gift for art flourished, so did his vision. He would soon enter the world of formal art education, where traditional methods of learning would clash violently with his burgeoning creativity. Here, Dalí would begin to see that art wasn't just about imitating reality. It was about transcending it. Chapter 2: The Dance of Dreams and Dissonance, the Surrealist Revolution.
Surrealism is destructive, but it destroys only what it considers to be shackles limiting our vision.
In 1929, Salvador Dalí entered a transformative phase of his artistic journey, a phase that would forever change the course of art history. He joined the Surrealist movement under the leadership of André Breton. Gone were the quiet, serene landscapes and introspective reflections of his earlier works. This was now a world where the mind could roam freely, unshackled by the constraints of logic and reason. In this new space, Dalí discovered his true artistic voice, a space where reality could be twisted, dreams could take shape, and the subconscious could breathe life into the canvas.
Dalí is a genius, not because he paints what he sees, but because he dares to paint what is unseen. The subconscious is his domain.
Breton's words ring with prophetic clarity. Dalí's genius lay not in his ability to replicate the world around him, but in his capacity to venture into the unseen realms of the subconscious, to give shape to the intangible, and to visualize the impossible. In the Surrealist movement, Dalí found the freedom to break free from traditional conventions and explore the deepest recesses of the human mind. It was here that Dalí's most famous and most controversial works came to life. One of his most iconic pieces, The Persistence of Memory, captures the essence of Dalí's new artistic philosophy. In this painting, we see a desolate landscape, punctuated by melting clocks draped over trees and distorted figures, as if time itself is unspooling and flowing like liquid. The clocks, symbols of order, structure, and measurement, are now soft, malleable, and subject to the whims of the subconscious. They appear to warp, defy, and dissolve, leaving behind a surreal distortion of what we perceive as reality. Dalí's depiction of time in The Persistence of Memory is nothing short of revolutionary. These once rigid, mechanical objects, clocks, are now fluid, dripping like wax in a dream state. They challenge the very essence of time as we understand it, linear, controlled, and definitive. In Dalí's universe, time is a fluid, ever-shifting concept, bending to the whims of the unconscious mind. The soft clocks are emblematic of Dalí's rebellion against the absolute notions of reality, urging us to question the nature of perception itself.
Time is a great illusion. These clocks are not just clocks, they represent the distortion of reality itself. What is time, if not something our minds impose on us?
Dalí's words echo the essence of surrealism itself, a movement that sought to dismantle the conventions of everyday life and expose the hidden layers of the human experience. For Dalí, time was not a fixed, rigid entity. It was fluid, subjective, and deeply tied to the emotional and psychological states of the individual. The melting clocks in The Persistence of Memory are a visual metaphor for this distortion, challenging the viewer to reconsider the temporal boundaries that govern their lives. As Dalí's engagement with surrealism deepened, his art began to reflect not only his own inner turmoil, but also the burgeoning influence of psychoanalysis, particularly the works of Sigmund Freud. Freud's theories on dreams, repression, and the unconscious had a profound impact on Dalí. The idea that dreams were a realm of unfiltered truth, where the mind could roam freely and express its deepest desires, became a cornerstone of Dalí's creative philosophy. Dalí embraced Freud's ideas and, in turn, infused them into his paintings, producing works that were more than just visual representations of dreams. They were psychological landscapes where repressed desires, childhood traumas, and unconscious fears manifested in symbolic, often bizarre ways. The distortions of the human form, the use of dreamlike imagery, and the blending of fantasy and reality in Dali's work all speak to this psychoanalytic influence. The lesser-known fact is that Dali's obsession with time was not just an artistic whim. It was inspired by his admiration of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Einstein's groundbreaking ideas suggested that time was not absolute but relative, dependent on the observer's perspective. This theory intrigued Dalí, and he sought to represent it visually in his works. In The Persistence of Memory, Dalí explored this concept by making time appear malleable and subjective. The melting clocks represent the relativity of time, suggesting that time itself is an illusion. Its perception is subjective and changes with the environment and emotional state of the observer. The use of dream imagery, psychoanalytic themes, and the malleability of time marked Dalí as one of the defining figures of the Surrealist movement. His work was a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, a dance between the dream world and reality. With each new painting, Dalí not only challenged the very nature of time and space, but also pushed the boundaries of what art could represent. His work became an exploration of the mind, its fears, desires, and irrationalities, capturing the essence of human experience in its most unfiltered, raw form. This theme appears in works such as The Sacrament of the Last Supper, where Dalí blends religious imagery with scientific concepts. The geometric forms in the background of the painting reflect his interest in the mathematical and scientific underpinnings of the universe, demonstrating Dalí's unique ability to merge the rational and irrational. In the Surrealist movement, Dalí did not just create art. He created a world of his own, where dreams collided with reality and the subconscious ruled. His works are not mere representations of dreams. They are themselves dreams captured in paint, offering a window into the artist's soul and the mysteries of the human mind. Through Dalí, we are invited to step into a world where time melts, reality warps, and the subconscious comes to life. Chapter 3: Gala, the flame that illuminated his soul, the Muse and the Madness. And then there was Gala Éluard, Dalí's muse, his lover, and the woman who would become the driving force behind his creative genius. She was a striking woman, possessing an enigmatic presence that seemed to transcend the ordinary. To Dalí, Gala was more than just a muse. She was his protector, his inspiration, and sometimes his obsession. In many ways, she was the embodiment of his art and the source of his brilliance.
I am the only person who can truly love her because I am her creator. I shaped her with my love and my art.
In Dalí's eyes, Gala was not just a woman. She was a living creation, molded by his love and devotion. A muse that became the very fabric of his artistic world. Dalí's obsession with her was so profound that he often depicted her in his works as a symbol of divinity, transcending the human realm. In his painting The Madonna of Port Liget, Gala is not merely a mortal woman, but an ethereal, almost godlike figure, radiating a sacred and surreal aura. This portrayal highlights Dalí's reverence for her, not just as his lover, but as his celestial muse. Gala, in Dalí's art, was often portrayed as a goddess, an idealized, unattainable form that spoke to Dalí's relentless search for perfection. But this image of her was also a reflection of his own psyche, where love, obsession, and divinity coexisted. To him, she was the woman who inspired his most visionary works, but she was also the source of his psychological complexity. His art became a vehicle through which he explored their relationship, one where admiration and control, creation and destruction could never be disentangled. Dalí's attachment to Gala was so intense, so all-consuming, that he painted her image over and over again. She became a recurring motif in his work, appearing in nearly 40 paintings during their time together. Each depiction offered a new layer of Dalí's interpretation of her, each brushstroke another attempt to capture the infinite aspects of her identity. But it was not just her image that fascinated him. It was her symbolism as the eternal muse, the one who anchored him in a world that was quickly becoming consumed by eccentricity.
I am not his only creation, but I am the one he will never let go. I exist only in the space he makes for me.
Gala understood her place within Dalí's world, both as the muse who inspired his genius and the woman who anchored his often chaotic and bizarre existence. While Dalí's art explored the subconscious, the surreal, and the unknown, Gala's role in his life was both grounding and elevating. She was the muse who illuminated his mind, guiding him through his artistic madness. Yet, in her words, there was a truth. Dalí's art created her in ways that sometimes eclipsed her own identity. She was not just a subject in his paintings. She was an extension of his vision, crafted by his imagination. Their relationship was filled with contradictions, intense love and obsession, artistic devotion and personal autonomy, a complex dynamic that Dalí never truly understood or accepted. Another lesser-known fact is that many of Dalí's works, especially during his time with Gala, are steeped in symbolism related to her presence. The clocks, landscapes, and figures in his paintings were often infused with the aura of Gala, with subtle references to her physical form, her spirit, and her emotional significance. One of the most profound examples of this is his frequent use of the egg, a symbol of birth, creation, and perfection, which Dalí associated with Gala's transformative role in his life. Through Gala, Dalí found both inspiration and madness. She was the light that illuminated his artistic soul, yet she was also the shadow that clouded his understanding of love, control, and independence. Their relationship was a dance of creation and destruction, a testament to the complexities of human emotion and the power of art to capture the elusive, intangible nature of the soul. Chapter 4: Beneath the Burning Sky, Surrealism Meets Tragedy. I am the first to admit that I have been influenced by the great masters of the past, but I have also been influenced by the greatest master of all, myself. These were the words of Salvador Dalí, an artist who saw himself as both disciple and innovator. As the world plunged into chaos with the Spanish Civil War and the looming devastation of World War II, Dalí's art underwent a profound transformation. The playful surrealist dreamscapes that once mesmerized audiences gave way to a much darker vision, revealing the torments of the human psyche under the shadow of war.
The world is burning, and I can see the flames. The giraffe, burning in my painting, is the symbol of that destruction.
One of the most haunting examples of this shift is Dalí's 1936 masterpiece, The Burning Giraffe. In this surreal tableau, a skeletal figure stands adorned with open drawers emerging from her torso, a concept Dalí referred to as drawers of the subconscious. Behind her, A giraffe engulfed in blue flames stretches its neck toward the sky. This giraffe is no mere animal. It is a symbol of war's devastation, of humanity's descent into self-destruction. But why a giraffe? Dalí believed this creature, often associated with elegance and grace, was an apt metaphor for the fragility of civilization itself, now consumed by the fires of violence and hatred. The drawers, meanwhile, represented hidden truths and desires, locked within the subconscious mind but exposed during times of crisis. Dalí's art during this period wasn't merely a reflection of external events. It was deeply personal. The Spanish Civil War, a conflict that pitted brother against brother, had torn his homeland apart. While Dalí outwardly avoided taking sides, the brutality of the war seeped into his work, turning his paintings into metaphysical commentaries on humanity's suffering. Dalí's relationship with the Surrealist movement also began to deteriorate during these turbulent years. His controversial political stances, including ambiguous comments about fascism and a fleeting friendship with Spanish dictator Franco, drove a wedge between him and his contemporaries. The lesser-known fact during this time is Dalí's brief interactions with Franco remain one of the most polarizing aspects of his life. While Dalí admired Franco's ability to wield power, his political beliefs were far more complex and inconsistent. Some argue that Dalí's eccentric comments were part of his theatrical persona, designed to provoke outrage rather than reveal true allegiance. Despite the controversies, Dalí stood firm in his belief that his art transcended politics. He once remarked,
"Surrealism is not tied to ideologies. My work is universal, as it belongs to dreams, to the subconscious, to humanity itself."
Through the Burning Giraffe and other works of this period, Dalí confronted the existential crises of war, identity, and mortality. His use of surrealism allowed him to navigate these themes on a metaphysical level, creating a visual language that was both deeply personal and universally resonant. Chapter 5: The Sacred Geometry of the Self, the Final Masterpieces and Reflections on Time.
Each morning when I wake up, I experience again a supreme pleasure, that of being Salvador Dalí.
In his later years, Salvador Dalí found peace in his own eccentricity, embracing the very essence of his being with a sense of ultimate fulfillment. But this period was not just one of self-reflection. It was a profound journey into the realms of religion, science, and spirituality, a fusion that revealed his deepest understanding of existence. As Dalí matured, he became fixated on the sacred geometry that governs the universe. His obsession with eternity, time, and the endless cycles of life came to define his late works, making his art a canvas where the divine and the scientific intersected.
In the face of eternity, I see only the circle. Everything returns, everything connects. I'm a part of this great cycle too.
In 1951, Dalí produced Christ of St. John of the Cross, a masterpiece that blended sacred geometry with surrealist ideals. The composition's center reveals Christ suspended in space, enveloped by a perfect circle, a direct representation of the infinite. Dalí's meticulous use of geometrical shapes, specifically the circular frame, suggests a spiritual force beyond the human realm, a reflection of the universe's inherent harmony. This shift in Dalí's art was not only a return to spirituality but a deep engagement with the scientific developments of his time. Influenced by Renaissance principles and the newly emerging atomic theories, Dalí sought to merge science and faith, to show that the invisible forces that shape our world could be understood through both art and physics. Dalí's later years were preoccupied with immortality, not just of the self, but of the artistic spirit. He believed that his paintings were more than just reflections of the present. They were his immortality, timeless echoes of his genius that would resonate beyond his own lifetime. One of the most striking examples of this belief is the Sacrament of the Last Supper. In this ethereal masterpiece, Dalí portrayed the Last Supper, yet not as a traditional religious scene. Instead, it's enveloped in mathematical precision and transparency. The translucent table and the figures bathed in soft light convey Dalí's intention to blend the visible with the invisible, to capture both the sacred and the cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. In this painting, Dalí took the symbolism of the Last Supper and turned it into a dialogue between divinity and the cosmos. By incorporating mathematical concepts like perspective and the golden ratio, Dalí expressed the unity of religious iconography and the scientific understanding of the universe.
I create not for my own pleasure, but for posterity. I am painting for eternity, and eternity will speak of me.
Dalí's late works were imbued with a sense of profound self-awareness and a fear of oblivion. Works like The Great Masturbator reflect his ongoing obsession with mortality. The piece is rich with imagery tied to psychosexual themes, but, at its core, is a manifestation of Dalí's fear of being forgotten, of his legacy fading into nothingness. In it, the figure of Dalí is depicted as both creator and destroyer, embodying the paradox of life and death. The tension between creation and destruction is evident as Dalí's fear of the inevitable is juxtaposed with his desire for transcendence. Dalí once said, "Time is a fluid concept," and this fluidity is palpable in his later works, where time bends and stretches, as if defying the linear constraints of existence. In Dalí's mind, time was no longer a constant but a bending, mutable force, capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. His later paintings, like The Persistence of Memory, played with the concept of time as something that could stretch, melt, and warp. The clocks in his work no longer represented a mere ticking of the clock. They were visual representations of the endless loops of time, the cyclical nature of existence itself. This obsession with time was rooted in Dalí's deep study of Einstein's theory of relativity, which had captured his imagination. Time, he concluded, was not a straight path but a landscape that could twist and distort based on perspective and velocity. Dalí's fascination with quantum physics in his later years is often overlooked. He believed that subatomic particles, those building blocks of matter, held the key to understanding the very nature of the universe. His study of Einstein's work, particularly the theory of relativity, fed into his vision of a fluid, interconnected reality where spirituality and science weren't opposing forces but two sides of the same coin. Dalí's art became a manifestation of these beliefs, an intersection where physics met metaphysics, and where science and the divine coexisted. By the end of his life, Dalí had created a body of work that transcended the self, the moment, and even the finite human existence. His art was a bridge between eternity and mortality, where the lines between the divine, the scientific, and the surreal all blurred into one. Through his exploration of sacred geometry, quantum physics, and spirituality, Dali's legacy became a living testament to the idea that art is not bound by time. It is, in fact, timeless. Dali's final works not only speak to his desire for immortality, but they remind us that time, like art, is infinite, always expanding, always evolving. Chapter 6: The Eternal Return of the Dream, Dali's Legacy and Final Years.
I am not afraid of the future. I am only afraid of losing the present.
Salvador Dalí lived through one of the most revolutionary periods in the history of art, a time when he transformed from a passionate young artist into an international icon. His life and work created a bridge between eras, and his legacy, marked by boundary-pushing creativity, has transcended generations. Yet, as the 1970s dawned, Dalí began to retreat from the art world. Overwhelmed by both his declining health and the burdens of his own genius, he chose seclusion in his later years.
You cannot paint for eternity, you can only live for eternity, and I am a man who has done both.
Though his physical health deteriorated with age, compounded by a series of strokes and other ailments, Dalí's mind remained as sharp as ever. Even as his body grew frail, his creativity never faltered. He continued to create art prolifically, producing works that not only reflected his unparalleled brilliance, but also his personal anguish. In his later years, Dalí's art grew more introspective and contemplative, grappling with the complex ideas of geometry, fractals, and the infinite, themes he had explored throughout his career. One such work, The Swallow's Tale, marked the culmination of his fascination with these mathematical concepts, merging his long-standing love for symmetry with the mind-bending possibilities of chaos theory and the theory of relativity. Dalí's exploration of these concepts would ultimately reach its zenith in this final series, symbolizing his tireless quest for understanding the universe's hidden patterns, even in the face of his own mortality.
I don't create art for history. I create it for eternity, and the present is where I am most alive.
Dalí's health continued to decline throughout the 1980s. By the time of his passing on January 23, 1989, at the age of 84, the world had already begun to mourn his loss. His funeral was an extravagant affair, reflecting the flamboyance that defined both his life and his art. Hundreds attended, not just to grieve, but to celebrate the life of a man who had dared to live as wildly as he painted. Dalí's legacy is not merely in the paintings he left behind, but in the way he forced the world to reconsider the very nature of art and its potential. He redefined what it meant to dream, to think, and to create. His life and his work remain a testament to the power of imagination and the persistence of the human spirit, even in the face of decline. Dalí once said, "The only difference between me and a madman is that I am not mad." His unwavering commitment to his art, his imagination, and his personal worldview ensured that he would never be forgotten.
Surrealism is the most important movement in art. I am the greatest surrealist.